Get full episodes of The Damage Report as a podcast on iTunes and Android, and you can watch the live show every weekday on YouTube TV.
This is a crazy story that is so weird, but also kind of is a glimpse into what political consultants are and are not trying as we move into this uncharted land of social media's influence on political campaigns. Okay, so you may remember Doug Jones won his senatorial race against Roy Moore. Doug Jones, this is the Alabama Senate race that took place after Jeff Sessions was made Attorney General, and Luther Strange, who was supposed to be the guy who took over afterwards, lost the primary to Roy Moore, who is that guy who put the 10 Commandments in the state courthouse and all that. So here is what happened during that election. The New York Times reports that there was a certain group that used Russia-style tactics in terms of fake Facebook groups, and we'll get into that in a second, in order to try to influence the election, and not necessarily influence it greatly, but see if the same dynamics that worked ostensibly for the Russians could also work for political consultants within the United States. So the project's operators created a Facebook page on which they posed as conservative Alabamians, using it to try to divide Republicans and even to endorse a write-in candidate to draw votes from Moore. According to the report itself, it says, we orchestrated an elaborate false flag operation that planted the idea that the Moore campaign was amplified on social media by a Russian botnet. So they did that. And some of the results are actually kind of crazy. They talked to the guy that was propped up essentially by this Facebook group to try to raise his social media profile by having what was essentially a pro-Democrat Facebook group masquerading as a Republican Facebook group that is mad at the Moore campaign for blah, 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 blah. And what they were able to do was improve this guy's Twitter handle from having 100 followers to 10,000 Twitter followers.
Wild, right?
So crazy. Now, what do consultants in America think of this? Because this was kind of it was actually funded by Reid Hoffman, who created LinkedIn, but it was a bunch of people who have had all kinds of influence and roles within American politics. But here is what non-affiliated people who weren't involved in this, but just outside consultants are saying about it. Dan Bayens, who's a GOP consultant in Kentucky, said, some will do whatever it takes to win. You've got Russia, which showed folks how to do it. You've got consultants willing to engage in this type of behavior and political leaders who apparently find it futile to stop it. That's on the right side. Joe Trippi, who was overseeing the Roy Moore campaign, said, I think the big danger is somebody in this cycle uses the dark arts of bots and social networks, and it works, then we're in real trouble. So the question is, like, they're talking about the futility of trying to stop this kind of stuff. I guess the question is, like, if there are fake accounts out there that manage to convince people of falsehoods, is that something? I mean, maybe not necessarily saying that the Russians are backing someone, but at least masquerading as people on your side to pull you away from your side to do something that actually hurts your side. I mean, what's your take on that?
I mean, I think just their responses to this and the reaction to this is fascinating because that is the audience of their base. The people who say Hillary Clinton has killed 60 people secretly.
Oh God,
and Pizzagate and things like that. Right, and no one cares until it starts to happen to you. There's not that thought process until it actually happens. There's not that just process of, you know what, this is a weird thing to do. This is not okay. This is a slippery slope. This is not okay for anybody. When they're winning, like that, like Roy Moore himself would never come out against that when we're talking about the president, what happened with the president, and what our social media has looked like for the past 3 years,
right,
because of this. But now, he's got someone who worked on his campaign saying, hey, this is terrible. This is not okay. And I just want to say, where have you all been?
Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, this is crazy because, like, okay, there's a lot of differences between like Russian meddling in a campaign and American meddling in a campaign. That's one thing I would say. If it was a choice between people who are meddling, I would rather have Americans than Russians, but that's kind of difficult to say because it's still people utterly lying.
Right.
Also, there's the fact that lying happens all the damn time.
That is true.
Like, definitely watch our year-end special that's coming up next week where we talk about the worst ads. There was that Duncan Hunter ad against Amar Kampanijjar that essentially said that he's trying to hide the fact that he's a Muslim with the name Amar Kampanijjar, but also lying about his family and lying about his role as a terrorist. This stuff happens all the time. What is okay, what is not okay? I think a lot of people here would say, listen, as long as if we get money out of politics, then it'll hamstring the people who have the resources to launch these expensive, counter campaigns. But it's just so fascinating to me because it's essentially trying. With tribalism in America, you have two sides, and if anyone identifies me as on the opposite side of you, they're instantly not going to pay attention to it. But I think definitely not using these weird bot tactics. But if you set up a fake account that lays out from the perspective of like someone who is voting Republican, typically, but also you make like a kind of economic populist argument to them in their voice, even though it's not actually their voice, like that could work. That's the way around tribalism, and the argument could ostensibly be like, it's a sound argument. The only lie was like who was saying it, but like the logic still holds. And that's all we've been trying to do on the left, and I'm sure that's what people on the right have been trying to do who are earnest, are saying like, I'm trying to give you just an argument as to why this is in your favor. I don't know, I mean, what do you think about it?
That's just, it's like hard to put into words, which is weird because that's kind of my job. But
well, listen, the report does not say whether the project purchased the Russian bot Twitter accounts that suddenly began to follow Mr. Moore, but it takes credit for radicalizing Democrats with a Russian bot scandal and points to stories on the phenomenon in the mainstream media. Roy Moore flooded with a fake Russian Twitter followers. That's what the New York Times said. Then this one thing, just to kind of bring it home. There is a quote from Mark Twain that I think is really awesome. In this time where I feel like everyone's been fooled and I want to tell them that they've been fooled, he has this quote that's like, how easy it is to make people believe a lie and hard it is to undo that work again.
It's so true.
And a lot of people, and the version you'll see in memes is like, it's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they've been fooled. And this seems, I mean, yes, of course it's so ridiculous and terrible, but at least as an experiment, and they say it did not truly affect the entire campaign and the results. I mean, the guy got a couple hundred write-in votes, and the total write-in, there were a couple hundred write-in votes. Other people like Condoleezza Rice, Jeff Sessions, and Jesus Christ got more write-in votes. But it's just one of those crazy behind-the-scenes things that you're seeing, like, people in campaigns work on.
Like, doesn't that come off kind of irresponsible to you, or is it just me? Because it's kind of like, oh, fire's cool, let's touch it. Like and that is, no, don't touch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that there's a different, I don't know, just like what you can learn from this and just the harm of doing it and kind of furthering it. It seems like they're not equal.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's where we are.
Thank you very much for watching this clip from The Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.